In a world where the moral order has already crumbled, the most terrifying thing is not those flesh-eating zombies, but the human heart. In my previous life, when the zombie virus suddenly broke out, I didn't muster up the courage to step out of my home to search for supplies, until all the supplies at home were completely exhausted. Alas, I had barely walked out more than a meter, when I was bitten by a zombie. The feeling of the virus spreading rapidly in my body was like eating a lump of extremely foul-smelling excrement. This is by no means an exaggeration. The stinking and putrid smell emanating from my throat was simply unbearable, when my sense of smell hadn't completely disappeared. I have no doubt that those who were infected with the zombie virus were actually suffocated to death by this stench. Fortunately, God took pity on me after I died. I was actually reborn, returning to a month before the outbreak of the zombie virus. I pinched my thigh hard. It hurt. Then I took a look at the time. It was in the afternoon. If all of this was real, then 5 minutes later, hashtags like "a former prime minister of country" or "was shot and killed" that could attract global attention would appear on Weibo. After waiting for 5 minutes, the Weibo hashtags indeed exploded as expected, and this meant that in 30 days, this global virus would break out as scheduled. In my previous life, after the zombie virus broke out, I didn't even survive until the 5th day and died. Due to the lack of water and food, I had to go out to search for them, and as a result I died so miserably. I called my parents, who were still in other cities, back as quickly as possible. My parents have always been very open-minded, and have unconditionally believed in me since I was a child, so it didn't take much effort for them to return to my side. The countdown to the end of the world reached the 29th day. One of the most important things in building our fortress was the safety of the house. Therefore, those fragile and easily breakable doors and windows had to be replaced with stronger and more defensive solid doors and windows. My family lives on the top floor, that is, the TH floor, and it also comes with a slanted rooftop attic at a degree angle. After graduating, with the income from my main job as a voice actor and my part-time writing, as well as the lucky money red envelopes I had saved since I was a child, I finally managed to scrape together enough for the down payment and bought this house. Unexpectedly, after the virus broke out, this actually became the fortress where I could barely manage to survive. Although the community where we live is quite far from the city center, the quality of the property is extremely good. It is made of reinforced concrete, and the foundation is extremely solid. It can easily withstand an earthquake of magnitude 8 or 9. The community has a design of one elevator for each household without an owner's card. It is simply impossible to reach the TH floor. Time was pressing my father, and I quickly contacted the people in the door and window business. My mother, on the other hand, cleared out all the unnecessary, useless, and space-consuming things in the house. And we also hired someone to install soundproof cushions all over the house. You know, zombies have extremely sensitive hearing. Even though we live on the top floor, we still have to be extremely cautious. We selected the best glass currently available on the market. This kind of glass has the functions of bulletproofing, fireproofing, and soundproofing. The glass alone is a full 5 centimeters thick, with a vacuum layer in the middle, and the inner layer is a 5 centimeter thick bulletproof glass. Even the glass on the slanted open-air balcony outside the attic on the second floor, which is approximately 40 square meters, was all replaced with bulletproof glass. One-way films were installed on all the glass in the house, so that only we can see the situation outside, while people outside cannot see what's going on inside. Before installing the bulletproof glass, we paid 3 times the market price to have someone install a solar energy device on the roof. In this way, even if there is a power outage in the future, the electrical appliances in the house can still maintain basic operation. The entrance door was also replaced with a bank-level explosion-proof door. In the words of the installation master, unless someone bombards it continuously with a cannon, this door can never be opened. My mother has always been very cautious. After hearing what the master said, she still felt uneasy, so she had someone install an additional anti-theft door outside. During this period, we also divided the open-air balcony into 2 areas. Half of the area was used to place a water storage tank, and a manually controlled pipeline was connected to the outside of the wall. In this way, when it rains, the rainwater will flow directly into the water storage tank after falling into the pipeline. If the water storage tank is full, we can close the pipeline manually, so we don't have to worry about the water in the water storage tank overflowing. Since this water is all rainwater, we also purchased 3 water purifiers and water purification tablets, etc., to ensure the safety of drinking water in the later stage. The other half of the area is going to be used to create a small vegetable garden anyway, with the shelter of the open-air glass. This location is very suitable for growing vegetables. As for the load-bearing problem of the house, there is no need to worry at all. Before making these renovations, we specifically consulted the property management, And these renovations are all within a reasonable range. Moreover, my father is in the engineering field himself. He knows the location of the load-bearing walls of the house, and its general structure. If it wasn't safe, he definitely wouldn't have allowed us to make such a mess. Just the tasks of replacing the doors and windows, installing the solar energy device, the soundproof cushions, the water storage tank, and building the vegetable garden took a full 20 days. And these 20 days were only achieved after we paid extra money to urge the workers to rush the work. 10 days left in the countdown. After dealing with the major tasks, the next step was to hoard supplies. My parents and I split into 3 groups. My father went to various areas in the city to purchase drinking water and air purifiers. Although barreled drinking water seems ordinary, if too much is purchased in the same area, it will definitely arouse curiosity and suspicion. When the world is not in chaos, this is not a big deal. But once chaos ensues and there is a shortage of supplies, water sources, and medicines, having valuable resources will make one a target. So before setting out, I specifically told my parents, Mom and Dad, after you buy the things, ask them to send them all to the warehouse next to Mom's hospital. If anyone asks, just say it's for a charity event or something like that. Don't worry, your mother and I have been through so much in society. You don't have to worry about our choice of words. Since my mother is a nurse, the task of purchasing medicines, protective suits, masks, etc. was entrusted to her. Fortunately, my mother is a nurse and has relevant channels. Otherwise, even if we changed the area, we wouldn't be able to buy much. After all, with the current networking, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic in the previous 2 years, the purchase of medicines and masks has become stricter. As for me, I went on a shopping spree in major supermarkets. There was only one SUV at home, and my parents took it. The first thing I did after leaving home was to rent a truck that could be driven with a C1 driver's license. After renting the truck, I went straight to the nearest large warehouse-style supermarket to the rental point, Sam's Club. The food purchase was as follows. Vacuum-packed rice and flour were the basics and must be bought. Edible oils, walnut oil, olive oil, table salt and various seasonings, oyster sauce, soy sauce, vinegar, broad bean paste, soybean paste, beef paste, bamboo shoot paste, etc. were all purchased. Canned beef, luncheon meat cans, canned fish, and other meat cans. Canned peaches, tangerines, kiwi fruit, apples, and other fruit cans. Various instant self-heating products, hot pot, luosafen, duck blood vermicelli soup, dried noodles with green peppers, nanchong mixed noodles, chongqing small noodles, etc. Nut gift boxes including pistachios, almonds, pecans, apricots, cashews, etc. Instant breakfasts such as soybean milk powder, black sesame paste, and hogu rice porridge. Since I bought a lot of things, and they were all bought in boxes, I directly found the person in charge of Sam's Club, and asked them to take the products with the latest production date from the warehouse. As a major customer, Sam's Club didn't hesitate and directly agreed. Estimating the capacity of the small truck, I also took many boxes of small bottled mineral water. When passing through the milk area, I originally wanted to take dozens of boxes, just like with the mineral water, but considering that the shelf life of milk was too short, I gave up. However, the intake of dairy products was still necessary, so I decided to replace it with adult milk powder. The shelf life of canned milk powder was at least 2 years, which was much longer than that of milk. Anyway, as long as it could supplement calcium. I died early in my previous life and didn't know how long the zombie virus would last, so I tried to choose products with a long shelf life when buying things. After a large-scale shopping spree, 30,000 yuan was spent. After helping the logistics staff of Sam's Club load all the supplies onto the truck, my arms were so tired that they went limp. Ms. Jiang, all the goods have been handed over. Thank you. Perhaps out of curiosity, the person in charge of Sam's Club logistics asked, excuse me, why are you buying so many things? Our company is holding a charity event, and these are all donated to the children in the mountainous areas. I used the pre-prepared words to stop the questions. Sure enough, after hearing the answer, there was no suspicion. On the way home, when passing by a pharmacy, after thinking about it, I still found a place to park. I bought some health products that could supplement various trace elements, such as VC, VE, etc., in a large pharmacy. After all, fruits couldn't be planted, and their shelf life was relatively short. Later, we could only rely on these to supplement the trace elements needed by the body. Even if my mother had prepared some, it wouldn't be too much. The salesgirl in the pharmacy was obviously very curious about why I was buying so much, and asked the same question as the person in charge of Sam's Club logistics. I fobbed her off with the same answer. By the time I got home, it was already dark. My parents were waiting in the garage to unload the goods. Fortunately, it was a 1 elevator per household design. It took dozens of trips to unload all the things from the truck. After getting home, we put the things into the empty rooms that had been prepared in advance. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-living-room house. We had previously cleared out a bedroom, facing the shady side with a load-bearing wall below, and also cleared out another room, without a window. The room with the load-bearing wall was used to store barreled water, rice, etc. The attic upstairs could also be used to store barreled water, and things like cans with an extremely long shelf life were directly placed in the attic. Many fixed shelves were placed in each room where the supplies were stored. My mother placed the supplies on the shelves in order according to their type, shelf life, and production date. For someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder, it was extremely satisfying. My father had someone install the air purifiers in the house in the afternoon. After the solar energy device was installed, the electrical circuits of the household appliances at home were also switched. Time waits for no one. We had to check whether these functions were okay before the chaotic times arrived. Fortunately, everything was fine. After storing all the things properly, our family sat in the living room and sorted out the supplies at home. There were 100 barrels of barreled water, with 50 barrels placed in the attic and 50 barrels in the downstairs bedroom to distribute the weight. There were 30 boxes of meat cans, with 24 cans in each box and 1 box for each flavor. There were 40 boxes of fruit cans, with 24 cans in each box and 1 box for each flavor. There were 30 bags of rice, with 10 caddies in each bag. There were 20 bags of flour, with 10 caddies in each bag. Don't ask why there is so much less flour than rice. The answer is that our family eats more rice. Even if the rice and flour are vacuum-packed, their shelf life is at most 2 years. There are only 3 of us in the family. At most, a bag of rice will take at least 1.5 months to finish. Moreover, we will change the taste occasionally, so this quantity is completely sufficient. There were 5 boxes of edible oils, olive oil, walnut oil, etc., with 10 bottles in each box. There were a total of 5 boxes of various seasonings: oyster sauce, soy sauce, vinegar, broad bean paste, soybean paste, beef paste, bamboo shoot paste, etc. There were 10 boxes of table salt, with 24 bags in each box. Salt is very important for the body and has many functions, such as disinfection, meat curing, etc., so we bought more of it. There were 50 boxes of large nut gift boxes. There were a total of 30 boxes of various instant self-heating products, with 10 boxes in each box. There were 5 boxes of various instant breakfasts, with 20 boxes in each box. There were 5 boxes of canned milk powder, with 6 cans in each box. There were 5 boxes of compressed biscuits, with 20 bags in each box. There were 30 boxes of boxed mineral water, with 24 bottles in each box. These were basically all the food supplies. In fact, if we saved them, these supplies would be enough for us to eat for a year or 2. As for the medicines, I didn't understand them, and it was all arranged by my mother. Anyway, according to what she said, it was more than enough for our family of 3. She stocked up on all kinds of medicines for common emergency illnesses. She also stocked up on some uncommon ones. Next, I discussed with my parents what was still lacking. Time was running out, and we had to get everything ready within the limited time. 4. The next day, I went to another warehouse-style supermarket in the west of the city, Metro, and repurchased a lot of supplies. My mother went to buy thick blackout curtains, and then she and my father gave the house a thorough cleaning inside and out. They carefully tidied up the clothes, bed sheets, quilt covers, and even all kinds of small corners. After all, in the future, when water resources are scarce, it will only be a fantasy to clean like this again. I drove the small truck and went on a shopping spree in the supermarket to fill in the gaps. Today, I mainly bought daily necessities such as toilet paper, wet wipes, sanitary products, sanitary napkins, etc., towels, toothbrushes, toothpaste, shower gel, shampoo, soap, socks, slippers, etc. Among these, the most toilet paper was bought. Things that are most easily ignored in daily life are actually the most indispensable in life. Thinking of the accumulated garbage in the future, I also bought 2 garbage disposals. The plan was that the wet garbage generated at home in the future could be used as fertilizer for the vegetable garden, and the dry garbage could be processed by the garbage disposal. Worried that there might be problems with the toilet sewer, I also bought dozens of bags of cat litter. If it really came to that, we could only use cat litter to deal with the excrement. Seeing that there was still some space in the truck, I also bought some cans, instant self-heating products, bottled mineral water. I also bought a lot of various small snacks, such as pork jerky, potato chips, spicy strips, chocolate, etc. The main things I bought were still various vacuum-packed meats, such as beef, pork, cured meat, etc. On the way back, I passed by the vegetable market again, and bought some fresh meat, 50 caddies each of pork, beef, chicken, and duck. After getting home, my mother put the sealed food in the bedroom, and the fresh meat could only be put in the refrigerator. There was too much meat to fit in, so after discussing with us, my mother decided to buy a large silent freezer the next day to specifically store the fresh meat. The vacuum-packed meat was placed in the room without a window, which was relatively cool. Time was getting more and more urgent. Early in the morning, I was dragged up by my parents and went out to buy things. Maybe it was the compensatory consumption during this period. My parents, who have always been thrifty, were even more crazy about shopping than me. The world is about to change. Keeping money is just waste paper. That's right. After all these years with your father, I've only lived so freely during this period. Buy what needs to be bought. As long as our family is together and safe, that's enough. Under such remarks, my mother bought a large silent freezer in less than half an hour, and also bought a large double-door refrigerator to replace the single-door one at home. My mother has a bit of obsessive-compulsive disorder. There was a lot of extra space left in the position of the refrigerator in the kitchen at home, and she always felt uncomfortable looking at it. Now it was good. Buying a large silent double-door refrigerator just filled up the empty space. She also bought a large projector. It didn't take up much space and had a larger screen than a TV. In the future, when we were bored at home, we could watch dramas to kill time. Then, we went to the vegetable market and bought a lot of vegetables. Vegetables that could be stored for a long time, such as potatoes, Chinese cabbages, carrots, etc., were all bought in sacks. The vegetable vendor Laban couldn't stop smiling. My father bought dozens of packs of various vegetable seeds. After buying the seeds, we remembered that we hadn't bought the nutrient soil and fertilizer for the vegetable garden. Before leaving, my mother separately bought a lot of spices such as star anise, cinnamon, dried chili peppers, etc. We also bought a lot of dried goods that could be stored for a long time, such as dried mushrooms, dried kelp, dried tofu skin. Buying this and that, a whole day passed like this. At this moment, there were only 3 days left in the countdown to the end of the world. This month passed by in a flash. There were endless things to do and endless things to buy every day. My ability was limited. I wasn't good at literature, and I was even worse at martial arts. Protecting my family was the most important thing. You can say I'm selfish, or you can say I'm cowardly. However, I don't want to gamble on human nature with any possibility. My parents are old and not very capable in combat, and I, a corporate slave, am even less capable. Publicizing the arrival of the end of the world everywhere, while hoarding goods crazily at home, will definitely attract attention. After the zombie virus spreads, our family will become like delicious pork, and everyone will want to share. This is something I will never allow. The next day, my mother was at home organizing the things in the freezer, and tidying up a lot of the supplies purchased in the past 2 days. My father went to the vegetable garden on the second floor, to deal with the nutrient soil, and sow the seeds. As for me, I went to pick up the disinfectant alcohol that my mother had ordered in advance. The hospital where my mother worked was not far from home, and I got it in just over 10 minutes. When passing by the mall, I couldn't help but go in and do some shopping. In case the natural gas was cut off, I bought several camping stoves, air fryers, induction cookers, etc. I bought several hard drives with a large T memory, and also bought a lot of high-capacity power banks. My mother likes to watch TV dramas, such as Empresses in the Palace, and my father likes to watch war dramas and documentaries. All these need to be prepared. After all, staying in the house all the time, we need some entertainment activities to kill time, to prevent people from developing mental problems, due to staying in one environment for too long. When buying the hard drive, I directly asked the store owner to help download hundreds of TV dramas and movies. While waiting, I went to buy a lot of paper books, including classic novels and famous works. I bought all the books that I had always wanted to read, but didn't have time to read. Anyway, the bookshelf wall in my bedroom was still empty. When passing by the high-tech products store, I bought 3 home monitors by the way. I planned to install 1 at the front door, and 2 at the entrance of the safety passage. After thinking about it, I bought 2 drones. I had learned about drones briefly when I was at school, so it wouldn't be a problem for me to operate them. After the installation personnel finished setting up the monitors, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten an important thing, the door blocker. Taking advantage of the fact that there was still plenty of time, I arranged the items purchased earlier, and then rushed to buy 2 door blockers. I planned to install them at the door on the last day. At night, perhaps because all the things were finally prepared, my parents and I were all completely exhausted and safasang. The mental tension, combined with physical exhaustion, left us speechless. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by the cold wind blowing in through the window. Standing by the window, the summer night wind actually felt like it was cutting my flesh. It was unusually cold. Before I could think carefully, my parents were also awakened by this cold air. We had originally thought that all the things were fully prepared, and we had even planned how to cool down in the hot temperature after a power outage. A big reason for buying the freezer was that in the hot summer, when the outdoor air conditioner couldn't be used, we could freeze some ice cubes to cool down the house. But we had overlooked the low temperature. Since it was a southern city, even in the coldest winter, it wouldn't be too cold. Putting on 2 thin layers of clothes could solve the problem. However, this cold wind in the middle of the night told us that things were definitely not that simple. My parents and I discussed and decided to buy more down jackets, electric blankets, thick quilts, hand warmers, and other warm items as a precaution. Thinking that there were only 2 days left, after being awakened by the cold, none of us could fall asleep. So we simply opened JD.com and placed orders for electric blankets, hand warmers, and other small warm items. We bought 2 boxes of hand warmers directly. As soon as it dawned, after having a simple breakfast, my parents and I went out. We headed straight to the largest mall in the city. In June, this was the only mall that sold down jackets. We didn't care about the style or anything. As long as it could keep us warm, that was enough. So my parents and I each bought 5 of the thickest down jackets. The salesgirl looked at us as if we were crazy, but it was understandable. After all, normal people really wouldn't buy such thick down jackets in June. After buying them, my father took these down jackets home. Our family was not used to wearing new clothes directly. We had to wash them before wearing them. Since there were a lot of items to buy and use today, we asked my father to go home first to wash the clothes. By the time they were dried, my mother and I would almost be home. Next, my mother and I started another big shopping spree. We bought 6 thick large quilts. We bought 6 thick fluffy blankets. Each of us had 10 sets of thermal underwear. Each of us had 20 sets of regular underwear. We bought 6 pairs of cotton slippers. We bought 6 sets of thick home cotton clothes and pants. After shopping for most of the day and filling in many small items, my mother and I went home satisfied. Downstairs in the community, we bought several bamboo steamers of steamed buns. If we didn't eat them now, I'm afraid we wouldn't have the chance in the future. The spicy crayfish and how to any accorded a grilled fish that I had ordered according to the right time also arrived. My father came down to pick us up and help my mother carry the purchased items home. I, on the other hand, bought several boxes of beverages, such as cola, soy milk, coconut juice, Sprite, etc., at the convenience store outside the community. I also collected some various small snacks. Then I used the small cart I bought before to push them home. There was only one day left before the outbreak of the zombie virus. On the last day, we wouldn't go out anymore. So when we got home, my father and I installed door stoppers on the elevator and the door of the fire escape. We also used 2 big locks to lock the door of the fire escape specifically. As soon as the door of our home was closed, a sense of satisfaction welled up in my heart. With so many supplies at home, we could definitely live here for 3 years without going out. My mother was still washing the blankets and other items that we bought earlier in the bathroom. When I sat on the sofa, I noticed that there were 5 fire extinguishers in the corner of the wall where the projector was installed. Dad, where did these fire extinguishers come from? Your mother bought them. As if understanding my confusion, my father explained. There are too many supplies at home. Just in case there's a fire somewhere, it's for safety. Amazing. I gave my father a thumbs up. I had to say that my parents were really meticulous. Come to think of it, our family lived on the top floor, and it was basically an isolated urban fortress. It seemed extremely safe, but there was also a hidden danger. That was fire. Since it was too enclosed, once there was a fire, it would be like trapping ourselves inside. Although the weather this summer was abnormal, we still had to take precautions. There was still one day left before the outbreak of the zombie virus. 5. On the last day of the countdown, we didn't go out again. My father was still working in the small vegetable garden upstairs, and the water storage tank beside it had already been filled with water. My mother washed, dried, and put away all the new bed sheets, quilt covers, blankets, clothes, etc. that we bought yesterday. As for me, I looked at the 99+ unread messages on my mobile phone app. Last night, I anonymously posted messages on Jihu and Weibo about the upcoming outbreak of the zombie virus. Maybe because the topic was relatively novel, there were a lot of people reading it. However, very few netizens believed what I said. Almost all the unread messages were full of jokes. I didn't know how many people could believe it, but this was the only thing I could do to ensure my own safety. My parents had already informed our relatives half a month ago. They didn't directly say that the zombie virus would break out, but only said that there would be a new epidemic in the next half month, and that they must stock up on more supplies at home. Since my mother was a nurse, what she said carried some weight among our relatives. My grandparents on both sides had already passed away. There were only the 3 of us in our immediate family. This day passed in the blink of an eye. When I woke up in the morning, I saw a heavy rainstorm outside the window. Even though we had closed the windows in advance and turned on the air purifier, the coolness in the room still made us shiver a bit. It was hard to believe that this was the feeling of summer. In my previous life, I was in a hurry to go to work and didn't notice these unusual changes at all. Tion, get up quickly and have breakfast. Okay, Mom. When I came to the living room, my mother was heating up porridge in the kitchen. My father was watching the news channel on the projector. The news broadcasts were all normal, and there was not even a hint that the zombie virus had spread. Although I only lived for 5 days in my previous life, through the news broadcast that was still available before the network was cut off, I knew that the outbreak of the zombie virus in our country actually started a week ago. As for the cause of the zombie virus, it was because Country M was researching the immortal soft cell virus. The virus accidentally spread outside the laboratory 2 months ago. The state of Utah, where the virus laboratory was located, completely collapsed and was out of control in less than a month. In order to prevent the news from spreading, Country M cut off all communications in Utah at one go, including satellite signals, and built high walls to surround it. However, Country M's actions were too slow. Before the high walls were built, many virus carriers in the incubation period had already left. Although the government tried its best to control the entry and exit, many people left Utah under the pretext of human rights. After that, this Country M that put human rights above all else was completely out of control and gradually fell. Seeing that the whole country was out of control, some crazy congressmen in Country M arranged for many virus carriers in the incubation period to go to various countries around the world. Their idea was that since I was going to be destroyed, other countries must be destroyed with me. City S, a developed international metropolis on the coast of our country, was the first to suffer, and then the virus spread like wildfire. When we were halfway through our breakfast, my mother standing by the window let out a scream. My father and I put down our chopsticks and rushed over. It was already in chaos downstairs in the community. Since we lived on a high floor, we couldn't see it very clearly. However, just from the chaotic and bloody scene, we could tell that the zombie virus had broken out completely. My goodness, the person's brain matter was knocked out. But how can they still walk at the same speed as a normal person? My mother said while holding a pair of binoculars. After just one look, she stuffed the binoculars into my father's arms. The binoculars were a prize I won at my company's annual meeting. Unexpectedly, they came in handy at this moment. Looking at the bloody scene outside, my parents couldn't help but sigh with relief that they had believed me at the beginning. Otherwise, with the chaos outside, going out would mean death. It wasn't until the evening that the 3 of us emerged from the shock, fear, and panic. That's right. Even though I had experienced it once, I was still scared. After all, in my previous life, I only came into contact with zombies before I died. That was the first time, and also the last time. At night, none of us had much appetite, so I simply made some simple meals. After the meal, I told my parents some things about zombies. For example, zombies have extremely sharp hearing, even more sensitive than what we've seen in TV dramas before. They are very sensitive to the smell of blood. Attacking the head is the only effective and thorough way to deal with zombies and so on. Besides, what I emphasized the most was not to be overly compassionate. We could only save ourselves and couldn't save others. Even though I didn't personally experience the sinister nature of human hearts in my previous life, with so many supplies at home and 3 people without combat ability, the elderly and women, we definitely couldn't afford to test human nature. I knew that my parents had taken these words to heart. I didn't sleep well at night. Although we lived on a high floor, the silent night made the painful wails and cries for help clear and amplified. It was precisely because I had experienced it in my previous life, and had also suffered from a guilty conscience at such times that I kept telling my parents during the day that our ability was limited, and we couldn't save others. It took us 2 days to recover from our low spirits. There was a heavy rainstorm last night, and the temperature was even lower than before. There was a cliff-like drop of 10 degrees. Currently, the indoor temperature was 18 degrees, and the temperature outside must be even lower. How can this virus cause problems with the weather? Tion, do you know what the reason is? I don't know either. I didn't live long enough to find out in my previous life. My parents. My father turned on the TV. Currently, except for the CCTV news channel, all local TV stations had turned into snowflakes. Even the stable broadcasting time of the CCTV news channel was getting shorter and shorter. To relax the tense atmosphere, I took out the hard drive I had prepared earlier, and played Empresses in the Palace for my mother, which she had never finished watching before. Just as I adjusted it, a video call from WeChat on my mobile phone popped up. It was from the property management. My parents and I exchanged a look. My father frowned slightly. It might be the property management investigating the situation. This morning, they were counting the number of survivors in the community in the owners group. Then answer it. Maybe they are going to organize a rescue. My mother was an action-oriented person. As she spoke, she reached out to take my mobile phone and answer the video call. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and pulled my arm back. No, we can't answer it. My father and I said in unison. My mother looked at me in confusion. I quickly explained, Mom, we don't need rescue at all now. Even if the central government organizes a rescue, it's only been 2 days. The rescue definitely won't be this fast. Moreover, if they want to count the number of people, they should have done it long ago. Why wait until 2 days later? But the property management. The WeChat video ringtone stopped, and the house fell into silence. In an instant, I suddenly remembered a problem. Judging from my father's expression, he must have remembered it too. What are you two up to? It's so frustrating. Just say what's on your mind. Mom, we might have been targeted. What? The time was too urgent before. When we hoarded supplies, we only tried our best to avoid the other owners. The surveillance cameras in the elevator are managed by the property management. Moreover, my father and I met the property manager when we were transporting water that day. As long as he wants to, by checking the surveillance, he can find out that our family has hoarded a lot of supplies. As soon as I finished speaking, as if to confirm what I said, the property management sent a WeChat message. Ms. Jung, I'm sorry to bother you. These are extremely difficult times. Our property management has run out of supplies, and there are flesh-eating monsters outside, so we can't go out. We noticed that your family has stocked up a lot of things before. We hope you can spare some. We are willing to buy them at a high price. Please reply when you see this. Thank you. 6. No wonder they didn't send a WeChat message, but directly a video call. This person might be even more scheming than Zhen Huan. Mom frowned and complained. Dad pondered for a moment. Just pretend not to see it and don't reply. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I wasn't afraid of the property management people coming over. The 2 door stoppers outside the door, and the doors and windows at home weren't bought for nothing. Moreover, there were so many zombies outside. The property management office was far from here. They had to pass through buildings 7, 8, and 9, and they wouldn't dare to take such a risk. Thinking that our family's stockpiling of so many supplies had been discovered, our hearts were still in our throats. The main reason was that we hadn't prepared any weapons. We had stocked up so many things before, but just forgot to stockpile weapons for self-defense. It was a slip, up despite all our precautions. My parents and I rummaged through the entire room, and found that apart from the small hammer in the repair box, only the kitchen knives in the kitchen could be used as defensive weapons. There was no use regretting it now. We could only pin our hopes on this home, that was built like a bunker. Based on our observations in the past 2 days, we estimated that almost half of the people in the community had been infected with the zombie virus. Anyway, compared to the outside, it was much better here. This was mainly due to the fact that there weren't too many residents in the community. After all, this property was only put on sale last year. There were probably only 200 or 300 households in the entire community. More than 1,000 households hadn't moved in yet. Although the community was on the outskirts of the city, it was still the provincial capital. As time passed, the number of infected people would only increase. After all, people in the city had convenient transportation, and only a small number of people would stock up on more food at home. Not to mention that it was summer, and even fewer people would stockpile food. Thinking of this, I walked to the window. It was still raining extremely heavily outside. The raindrops were so dense that the opposite building was a bit blurry. As for the zombies wandering at the bottom of the community, they were also blurry even when seen through binoculars. Even so, when the window was opened, there was still an indescribable stench filling the air. Since the virus broke out, the air purifier at home had never been turned off. The rain this year is really strange. Who says it isn't? I've lived here all my life and have never seen such heavy rain. Mom and Dad came to my side at some point, and were discussing the heavy rain outside the window with me. Have you noticed that the movements of the zombies seem to be a bit slower than yesterday? Yeah, I noticed that, Dad. Maybe the heavy rain is affecting their movements. Alas, I wonder how long it will take for the government to take action. It was the third day of the end times. The rain outside was still incredibly heavy. Through the binoculars, we could see that there was water on the ground. As predicted before, many residents were starting to stir. Even though the city had fallen into an extremely silent state, there was still a sense of suppressed restlessness. Whether it was people or the zombies wandering around, I had to say that our choice to install soundproof cushions at the beginning was a very correct one. After the zombie virus broke out, the entire city fell into a silent state. In such a situation, the slightest sound would be amplified. For example, although we lived on the top floor of a high-rise building, when the window was opened, we could clearly hear the sound of a zombie accidentally knocking over a trash can downstairs. It was the fourth day of the end times. A resident living in the building opposite us finally couldn't hold on anymore and started going out to look for food. In this season, most people bought fresh food day by day to prevent it from rotting. Even if a small number of people stocked up, they usually stocked up for at most 3 days. The person taking action opposite was a young man, and he was very agile. Through the binoculars, we could see that he wrapped several layers of cotton cloth around his shoes. It seemed that he was also worried that the sound he made would attract zombies. We saw that after he left the unit building, he took out a black object from his bag, and then threw it to the diagonal position in a professional pizza tossing pose. That was downstairs of our building. Well, he really brought the saying better sacrifice others than oneself to the fullest. The next second, we heard the earth-shattering song of the lone warrior downstairs of our unit building. Go. Should I go? With this tattered cape. Fight. Should I fight? With the humblest dream. To the whimpers and roars in the night. Who says only those standing in the light are heroes? Taking advantage of the music playing, the man quickly ran to the car 100 meters in front. All the zombies were attracted to the downstairs of our unit building by the singing, and the instigator had already driven away. Damn it! How could this person be like this? I've seen mean people, but never one this mean. Rarely did I swear, and my parents didn't scold me this time. Judging by their expressions, they quite agreed with what I said. The singing attracted all the wandering zombies. Even without binoculars, I knew that people in the surrounding buildings were all paying attention to our area. Son of a bitch. To stay alive, he actually lured all the zombies to our building. Dad finally couldn't hold it in and swore in front of me for the first time. Mom frowned tightly. What should we do now? The glass door downstairs of the unit building looks thick, but it's still a glass door. If those zombies keep dongji it won't hold up for long at all. Don't worry, Mom. Our elevator is one for each household. Even if they break in, they can't come up. What about the fire escape? We have door stoppers, but they can't withstand so many zombies either. Don't scare ourselves. Our family lives on a high floor. Even if they come up, it will take time. At this moment, my heart was in a mess. There seemed to be such a scene in my previous life. But at this moment, I forgot what happened next, and my mind went blank. My phone in my hand vibrated. It was still from the property management. Ms. Jiang, are you at home? There are all zombies downstairs of your unit. Do you need help? My parents and I exchanged a look. Dad was still calm. Tion replied to him. 7. In front of an old hand like Dad, I naturally wouldn't show off my skills. I handed the phone to Dad and watched him operate. Dad directly recorded a voice message and converted it to text for sending. May I ask how you plan to help? The reply from the other side was very quick. There are police officers in our property management office. They have guns in their hands. It's just that we are currently short of supplies, and everyone's condition is not very good. If possible, we hope you can support us. Don't worry. At most, after resting for 1 day, we will find a way to help you clear the zombie horde downstairs. Dad continued to reply. It's such a long distance. How can we give you supplies? Our community was a pseudo-European style building without a rooftop, because the roofs were all slanted. So planes, helicopters, etc. couldn't land directly. Not to mention that our rooftop was completely sealed with bulletproof glass. I saw that your family had thick ropes when you were transporting goods before. Put the food and water in bags, and then directly throw them to the diagonal with the ropes. We will arrange people to pick them up. The reply from the other side was too fast. This proved one thing. They had thought about this problem for a long time. Dad put the phone aside and asked Mom and me what we thought. I don't think we can trust them. The police station is at least 10 kilometers away from here. There was no sound of police cars on the day the virus broke out. Moreover, with so many zombies, once the gunshots ring out, they won't have time to shoot, and will die directly. How could they lead all the zombies downstairs away? The risk is too great. It's not worth taking a risk for a little supplies. Honey, I think Tion is right. They are probably trying to deceive us. The family's opinions were unified, and we no longer paid attention to the messages sent by the property management. But it was only the 3rd day, and some people were already scheming. It was hard to imagine what some people's hearts would turn into as time passed. It was the 5th day of the end times. I was awakened by a vibration. The familiar feeling made me realize instantly that the glass door downstairs of the unit building had been broken by the zombies. In my previous life, I was also awakened like this. Then I was going to go out to look for food at noon, and was bitten to death. I I was out of it all morning. Mom and Dad obviously knew the reason. They accompanied me and talked to me for a long time, and my condition recovered. Anyway, in this life, I am in a much better situation than in my previous life. Mom and Dad are by my side, and we have stocked up so many items. There's nothing to worry about. There are door stoppers outside, and they can block for a while no matter what. As for the other people in the community, as food shortages became more severe, more and more people went out to look for supplies. But not everyone was as mean and decisive as the young man on the first day. Most people were still knocked down and eaten by the zombies. It was bloody and cruel, but most people who were short of supplies could only go out and try. This afternoon, the network signal was completely cut off. Jinjia, an hour later, the power and water supply were cut off. Fortunately, we had made preparations in advance at home and directly switched to solar energy. It rained again outside. Today, the highest indoor temperature had dropped to 8 degrees Celsius. We took out our thick winter clothes and put them on. The rain kept falling. This was also the strangest thing I had ever felt in my life. In my previous life, although it rained and the temperature dropped at the beginning, it wasn't as severe as it is now. Could it be that after being reborn, a butterfly effect has occurred? Dad and I took turns guarding by the window, watching the movements in the community. Some zombies were attracted by the people who occasionally wanted to go out to look for food, and wandered in the community again. Of course, there were also some people who searched from house to house through the fire escape in the building. For example, the 2 men and 1 woman in the building opposite that I saw now. The 2 men were strong and built. They were holding kitchen knives and wooden sticks in their hands. They searched floor by floor. First, the woman knocked on the door, and the 2 men guarded the surroundings. As soon as the door was opened, they rushed in directly and closed the door. At first, I thought they were just worried about the appearance of zombies, until I saw with my own eyes that after they came out, there was blood on their knives and faces. I realized what they were doing, using a woman as a shield to consume the vigilance of the people in the house, and then break in, seize resources. Those who disagreed were directly killed. In just a few days, the evil of human nature had been released to such an extent. And all this was happening not only in the building opposite, but also in all the unit buildings around. This also meant that there must be people searching our building. The reason why there has been no movement until now is probably largely due to the small group of zombies gathered on the first floor. Looking at it this way, we have actually benefited from a misfortune. I quickly told Mom and Dad about this. At first, they were reluctant to believe that some people could actually do such inhumane things. When they saw with their own eyes through binoculars that some people killed an elderly couple for a bite to eat, and that some people pushed a child out to save their own lives, they had to believe it. Of course, where there was evil, there was also warmth. But it was only a small number after all. 8. The distressing and unpleasant scenes, as well as the noises made by the dense group of zombies downstairs in the unit building, did not dampen our enthusiasm for having a meal. People need food to stay strong. Especially in such times, we should take good care of ourselves and our families. As for not being worried about the small group of zombies downstairs, it was because when my father bought the house, he paid special attention to the structure of the building. Unless an extremely large group of zombies, tens of thousands or more, continuously rammed the building day and night, this building would not collapse. When the weather turns cold, one craves something warm to eat. Our whole family got busy in the kitchen. My father kneaded the dough to make xiaolongbao for the next morning's breakfast, and my mother prepared Xinjiang noodle soup as the staple food for dinner. I washed diced beef with Sichuan pepper, spicy streaky pork, luncheon meat, potatoes, zucchinis, lotus root slices, lettuce, etc. Especially, I washed all the vegetables that could no longer be stored. The main dish for tonight was barbecued meat. The seasonings and dipping sauces for the barbecued meat were prepared according to the recipes of the restaurant. All in all, let's enjoy the moment. Outside there was a fierce storm, coldness, fear, and the unknown enveloped this silent city. While we pulled down the blackout bed curtains, turned on the spare warm yellow small lamp, and the electric heater, we took off our coats, and were ready to start our meal. The moment the crispy and sweet lettuce wrapped around the spicy, crispy, and fragrant streaky pork was put into my mouth with a hint of heat, all the negative emotions were cured. At such a time, being able to have such a bite was truly something I couldn't even dream of in my previous life. It was the 8th day of the end of the world. When my parents and I got up this morning, we found that there was no movement from the zombies downstairs. We went to the window and couldn't see the zombies wandering in the community through the binoculars. It was as if those zombies had disappeared overnight. Something was not right. My mother pushed the window open a crack, and a stuffy, hot, and humid breath rushed in instantly. Seeing this, she quickly closed the window again. No wonder I felt a bit hot and restless after getting up today. I quickly scanned the surrounding unit buildings, and found that it was very quiet today. Even those ruthless scoundrels in the building opposite didn't make any move. I only lived for 5 days in my previous life, so I didn't know more than others about what would happen next. My parents and I all felt that something was amiss. Apparently, the survivors in the community shared the same thought. Almost everyone was leaning by the window, checking the situation. Except that we had deliberately pasted privacy films. More than 90% of the families had original glass, so it was very clear to observe with binoculars. Until 12 noon, the silence of the community during the day was finally broken. I don't know which building's resident threw an aluminum can out of the window. The sound of the aluminum can hitting the ground was particularly harsh in such a silent environment. Without looking, I knew that everyone's attention had been drawn. Everyone held their breath and waited, but after 10 minutes, there were still no zombies appearing. Strange? Where are the zombies? It can't be that the government has eliminated all the zombies overnight, right? My mother asked in confusion. Impossible. Currently, the network, water, electricity and gas have not returned to normal. It shouldn't be this fast. And if it were the government clearing the zombies, we couldn't have failed to hear the commotion. I agreed with my father's opinion. Perhaps the sudden disappearance of the zombies made others bolder. One after another, noises echoed in the community. With such a big commotion, there was still no sign of the zombies. I don't know who suddenly shouted loudly. The zombies are gone. All the zombies are gone. We're safe. These words were like a firecracker, making people's eardrums vibrate. Were the zombies really gone? My parents also showed happy smiles on their faces. Tion, honey, did you see that? The zombies are gone, really gone. My mother said with a choke in her voice, and hugged my father and me tightly. My always serious father was also moved, and his eyes were moist. I couldn't believe it. Could it really be that simple? Many people in the community had already walked out of their homes. My mother had always loved to join in the fun. Before the end of the world, even if she was very tired after getting off work early from the hospital, she would go to do square dancing. At this moment, seeing so many people walking out of their homes, she couldn't hold back her restless heart either. Let's go. We should go out too. Mom, don't be in a hurry. Let's wait a bit longer. What are we waiting for? So many people are outside, and the zombies still haven't shown up. I pointed to the sky and said, Mom and Dad, the color of the sky doesn't look right. The sky was reddish-orange. I didn't notice it at first, but the color was getting deeper and deeper, since it was gradually changing, and with the sudden disappearance of the zombies, almost no one paid attention to it. The sky looks a bit like the day of the Wenchuan earthquake. Could it be that there's going to be an earthquake? My mother's conjecture made my father and me shiver. We were on the top floor, and the building was so high. If there was an earthquake of magnitude over 10, I'm afraid this would be our tomb. My father remained calm and said, Don't scare yourselves. We're in an alluvial plain. It was formed by the sedimentation of the sand and soil in the Min River, so the transverse waves of an earthquake will be buffered when they reach the CD plain. The most important thing is that City C is not on the Longminshan earthquake belt, so it won't be the epicenter. My mother opened the window. The temperature was still wet and stuffy, making people feel a bit suffocated. The only good thing was that the stench of the zombies had weakened a lot. As soon as the window was opened, we could vaguely hear the discussions of the survivors downstairs. It seemed that they had also noticed the change in the color of the sky. I looked at the people downstairs with binoculars, and found that many of them were walking towards the entrance of the community. A small number of people had already come back from the entrance of the community, carrying water and food. There was a small supermarket at the entrance of the community. It seemed that many people were so afraid of hunger, that the first thing they did when the zombies disappeared was to look for supplies. Through the binoculars, I saw the group of people who had killed 2 families in the building opposite also go downstairs. Judging from the situation, they should also be going to the small supermarket to look for supplies. I was so engrossed in watching that I was startled by my mother's exclamation behind me. I remember now. The sky was this color during the extremely severe flood in 1998. Flood? Where would the flood come from? Yesterday, the rainwater that had accumulated on the ground of the community for several days had all disappeared, and now the ground was dry. My father asked the same question that I was also wondering about. There's the Funan River to the right of our community. Have you forgotten? My mother's face showed anxiety. My father and I instantly reacted. Our community was located in the middle and lower reaches of the Funan River, and the sluice gate was not far from us. The disappearance of the zombies overnight was probably because they sensed something. My father rushed to the window quickly and shouted downstairs, Hurry up and go to the higher floors. A flood is coming. Hurry up and leave. Hey, stop moving things. Hurry up and leave the first floor. After shouting several times with all his might, my father's throat gave out. He must have strained his vocal cords. However, few people downstairs were willing to listen. Everyone was only focused on getting more supplies. My father wanted to shout again, but my mother forcefully stopped him and brought over a cup of warm water for him to drink. To ease my conscience, I also went to shout. I thought that if I could persuade one person, it would be one more person saved. I stopped only when my throat was sore and hoarse. My mother frowned at my father and me. She wanted to say something but held back. She took out ginsengzi lozenges and let my father and me each take one. After taking a breath, when I picked up the binoculars and looked downstairs again, I found that the people downstairs were running around with supplies in their hands. I noticed that water was seeping in from the entrance of the community. Mom and Dad, the water is coming in. What happened next was too fast. First, the water slowly overflowed, and then the flow of water gradually became faster. In just 2 minutes, the water had risen to the waist and hip level of a person. There were screams everywhere. Most people were frantically climbing up the stairs. Those who were slow were already submerged in the water. It was okay if they could swim, but those who couldn't swim were in a miserable situation. I closed the window. The speed of the water flow outside was getting faster and faster, and the impact force was very strong. 2 small whirlpools had formed at the crossroads. The windows on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the building directly facing the oncoming water flow were shattered by the impact. In the blink of an eye, the water level had risen above the 2nd floor. The only good thing was that the impact force of the water flow had weakened a lot at this moment. My mother said with a lingering fear. Fortunately, we didn't go downstairs just now. Otherwise, how could we have climbed up these more than 20 floors? Our family is lucky to be on the top floor. The people living on the lower floors are so unfortunate. I walked to the door and checked if the door was locked properly. Tion, what are you doing? Mom and Dad, we need to be careful these 2 days. Once the flood came, the people living downstairs will definitely come to the higher floors. The door stoppers are not omnipotent. My parents instantly understood what I meant and nodded. For the sake of safety, we decided not to cook with fire these 2 days, and just have some simple instant products like self-heating hot pot and dried noodles with green peppers. It was the 12th day of the end of the world. The flood had risen to the 11th floor. I estimated that the residents below the 15th floor should have moved upwards. There were soundproof cushions installed in our home, so we could only know the situation downstairs when we opened the door. Having too good soundproofing was also a kind of trouble. Many people downstairs were living in the fire escape. Currently, no one had come to the fire escape on the top floor. Listening to their conversations, it seemed that the residents on the 18th floor had taken in many people. They had only one requirement, which was to hand over all the supplies for sharing. There were also some people who had come from outside the community. No one had expected that there would be a flood. Looking outside the community from the north-facing room with binoculars, the old residential area over there had been completely submerged by the flood. Those who could swim and had good physical strength basically ran to our community. The reason why the community was built here was mainly that the land was cheap. Except for our community, there were old buildings all around. So as the tallest building in the vicinity, people over there would definitely come to our community. I had observed with binoculars and estimated that there were at least thousands of people in the entire community now. As for how they got here, I didn't know, but they must have found a way. It was the 14th day of the end of the world. The flood had not risen for a day. To prevent our smell from being detected, we had been eating instant food these days. At 1500 hours in the afternoon, it was like the background of a game changing. The temperature suddenly soared. I looked at the indoor thermometer, and it was 26 degrees. This meant that the temperature had risen by more than 10 degrees in less than 3 hours. My mother was a nurse, my father was in the engineering field, and I was just an ordinary voice actor. We knew nothing about the climate. We only knew that the Earth, on which we depended for survival, had also encountered problems. Through the window, I observed that the water outside had started to slowly recede, and currently, the water level had dropped to the 9th floor. But the temperature was still rising continuously. It rose by about 1 degree every hour. Although it was already sunset, the temperature was 9 degrees higher than at noon. We had already taken off our thick winter clothes and turned on the air purifier. We didn't dare to open the window wide at all. Now everyone was gathered on the higher floors, and if we opened the window, someone might see us. We only dared to leave a small crack when opening the window, and someone must be guarding it. As for the air conditioner, not to mention, even if we had electricity at home to turn it on, we didn't dare to. The sound of the outdoor unit would definitely arouse suspicion. My father and I specifically went to the water storage tank to fetch 2 large basins of water and froze them in the freezer that was half empty. My mother replaced the thick quilt covers in the 2 rooms. Otherwise, we couldn't sleep at night. Perhaps the disappearance of the zombies in the past few days had made most people bolder. When we opened the window, we could hear the sound of conversations from time to time. We couldn't make out what they were saying, but we could hear the voices. It was the 16th day of the end of the world. The water level had dropped to the 5th floor. The indoor temperature during the day was 48 degrees, and the indoor temperature at night was 40 degrees. The increase in temperature led to more electricity consumption at home. Fortunately, we hadn't used much of the reserved electricity in the solar energy system some time ago. So even if we had to freeze several large basins of ice every day to cool down the indoor temperature, the electricity was still sufficient. At noon, my parents and I were having a meal. The window in the living room was slightly open, and we heard waves of cries for help coming from outside. Help, help. The zombies are here again. As soon as the word zombies came out, my parents and I exchanged a look and rushed over immediately. We saw that many people were struggling in the water, and there were patches of red floating on the water surface. What's going on? Mom and Dad, look over there. There are zombies in the water. Some people had originally wanted to go and rescue others, but when they saw the zombies in the water, everyone gave up. We could only watch helplessly as dozens of people in the water were dragged into the water by the zombies and devoured. These 2 days, due to the high temperature, many people went swimming to cool down. Unexpectedly, the zombies emerged again without warning. We couldn't figure out the principle behind this, but we knew that the days to come would be restless and chaotic again. The appearance of zombies in the water made the community fall silent again. Tion, how many zombies do you think there are in the water? Dad stood beside me, looking at the water surface downstairs and asking. There should be quite a few. Look at the white skeletons near Building 5. It's impossible for only a few zombies to make them so clean. They didn't even have the chance to turn into zombies. Then why don't they show up on the water surface? I don't know. This was indeed the most strange point for me. According to those zombie movies I had watched before, zombies shouldn't be afraid of sunlight. Unable to figure it out, I stopped thinking. Thinking was useless anyway. We ordinary people couldn't do anything earth-shattering. Being able to ensure our own survival was already remarkable. The weather was extremely hot, and it was impossible to sleep soundly at night. Even though my parents and I had made a bed on the living room floor and placed 2 ice bricks in the living room, it was still so stuffy and suffocating. Coupled with the reappearance of the zombies, we were once again plunged into unease. It was precisely because of this that when there was a noise outside the door in the middle of the night, my parents and I sat up instantly. Since the end of the world broke out, no one had ever appeared outside our door before. I motioned to my parents to keep quiet, and then went to the bedroom to bring out the computer. I never expected that the surveillance camera I bought back then would really come in handy one day. Before turning on the surveillance, I first inserted the earphones into the audio output port. Although there were soundproof cushions installed in the house, who could guarantee that the effect would be perfect? On the surveillance screen, there were 5 or 6 men standing at the entrance of the fire escape gate, fiddling with the door lock. It seemed that they wanted to get in. As they fiddled, they talked. "Are you sure there are people in here? Do you even need to think? This door can't be opened. It must have been locked by the people inside." The fat man leaning against the corridor kept wiping the sweat off his face, due to the heat, and said impatiently, "So what if there are people? It's so hot on the top floor. Even if we take over this place, we can't live here." "You don't know shit. Do you think I would have gathered you guys to do this if I wasn't sure?" The person speaking was the one fiddling with the door lock. Since his back was facing the camera, I couldn't see what he looked like at all. I could only see tattoos on his strong arms. "What do you mean?" "Before the end of the world, I lived in the opposite building. Their family renovated their house again, before the end of the world, and even pasted privacy films. One day, I met the old man of this family in the underground garage. I saw that they bought a truckload of drinking water, and a lot of other things. Don't you find it strange? After the zombie outbreak, I've been thinking about this for nearly a month. Did this family know something in advance? Otherwise, who in their right mind would buy so many things and hoard them at home?" "Is that true?" the fat man said. "I'm not in the mood to joke with you about this. That's why when I went to the supermarket to get some things before, and the flood came, I ran towards this building to observe. Think about it. There's no one on the 23rd floor, and we've lived downstairs for so long without hearing any movement from upstairs." The tattooed man paused and then continued, "But I can guarantee that there are definitely people living here. So if we take over this family, I estimate that we won't have to worry for at least several months. So that's how it is. Brother Wong, no wonder you didn't let us tell anyone else, and came up quietly in the middle of the night." The conversation in the earphones made my parents and me feel a sense of urgency. Although we had long known that our actions at that time were a bit conspicuous, we had always held the idea that maybe others don't care. But we never expected that our family had long become a piece of mouth-watering fact. "Is the door stopper set up properly?" Mom asked Dad worriedly. "It's all set up. There should be no problem." Even so, none of us relaxed. Mom sighed and got up to walk towards the bedroom. I didn't ask her what she was going to do. At this moment, all my attention was on the computer screen. Maybe the door was too solid. After fiddling with it for a long time, they couldn't open it. The group of people kicked the door of the fire, escaped angrily, and then turned around and left cursing. Only then did the surveillance camera show the front faces of the group of people. It was the gang from the opposite building, who had killed many innocent people. I never expected that our family had already been targeted by them. This was troublesome. I looked at Dad and said, "Dad, what do you think? That group of people definitely won't give up easily. We need to make preparations in advance." Just as he finished speaking, we realized that Mom hadn't come out for a long time. When we walked into the bedroom, we found that Mom was fiddling with her medicine jars. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Making medicine." My father and I looked at each other in confusion. As Mom fiddled with the test tube medicines in her hands, she said, "That group of people will definitely come again. We don't have any weapons. I'll make some medicine and smear it on the kitchen knives later, just in case." Well, as the saying goes, the old are more experienced. The next day in the middle of the night, the tattooed man's gang really came. This time they were holding tools. Axes, machetes, hammers, hydraulic shears, you name it. They were fully equipped. At least in this period, it was really not easy to get so many things. "Mom and Dad, that group of people are here." I quickly woke up my parents, and we watched the screen of the computer surveillance together. For us, the most dangerous thing now was not the zombies in the water downstairs, but this group of people outside with blood on their hands. They were young and strong. In about an hour, the door of the fire escape was opened. Damn it! They even put 2 door stoppers. No wonder it took so long to open. That's a good thing. It means this family really has something. The weather was sweltering, and after working for another hour, the faces of the group of people were full of anger. The tattooed man walked directly to the door and started pounding on it. "Is anyone there? Please open the door." My parents and I exchanged a look. Just as I was about to get up, Dad directly grabbed me and shook his head, indicating that we should ignore them for now. At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. "I know there are people in your family. I have no ill intentions. I just want to ask for help. Please open the door." Obviously, the tattooed man rarely spoke to people politely, and his tone was very stiff. My parents subconsciously stood in front of me, protecting me, even though it wasn't really dangerous yet. Seeing that we didn't say anything, the tattooed man couldn't hold it in anymore. "Your family has so many supplies. What's wrong with sharing some? If you're sensible and share some, we won't tell others that your family has a large amount of supplies." Seeing that we still didn't speak, the tattooed man repeated to us what he had said to his gang yesterday. Obviously, he wanted to break us down. He wanted to tell us that they already knew the situation. Dad, let's talk to them. No. Mom directly refused and said, that group of people are like wolves that can never be satisfied, never. Mom, we're not compromising. We're just probing. Dad nodded and said, yes, I think the same as Tion. Seeing that it was 2-1, Mom didn't say anything more. Dad walked to the door and said, how can I trust that you'll leave us alone after getting the things? The people outside obviously didn't expect that we would suddenly speak. Of course. We saw what you did in the opposite building. You killed so many people for food. How can you guarantee your credibility? When I heard Dad's words, I immediately gave him a thumbs up. The tattooed man was showing off because he thought he knew about our supplies. We could also use what we saw to fight back. Sure enough, the tattooed man and the others were stunned. They didn't expect that the things they had done had been seen. Not only that, but we also filmed all the things they had done. When order and law were restored, these could be used as evidence to judge them. Dad's words angered the people outside. The tattooed man and the others picked up axes and started chopping at the door. However, I wasn't worried. This was a bank-level explosion-proof door. It couldn't be opened by humans alone. The group of people outside were so angry that they picked up all kinds of tools in their hands and started smashing. After smashing for nearly an hour, they were tired. They spat at the door of our house and left, cursing. We hadn't had a good rest for 2 consecutive nights. As soon as that group of people left, after putting 2 more ice bricks, my parents and I just lay down and fell asleep. It wasn't until noon that we were awakened by the noise outside the door. I immediately looked at the surveillance camera screen on the computer and found that the tattooed man had brought a group of people. It wasn't just his gang. Brothers, there are super many supplies in this house, and they've been enjoying them alone. In such a special period, they only think about themselves. I've never seen such selfish people. They're staying at home comfortably, while we're struggling to survive, avoiding the flood, the zombies in the water, and the hot temperature. Brothers, can you tolerate this? When I heard what the tattooed man said, I laughed. I didn't expect that he had the ability to stir up people's emotions and push us directly to the opposite side of everyone. Dad, who was always calm, looked a bit flustered at this moment. There were only 3 people in our family, and none of us were good at fighting, even though it was an explosion-proof door. If they kept chopping at it every day, I'm afraid it would be chopped through sooner or later. All the windows in the house had been closed tightly, for fear that someone would risk climbing in from the outer wall. In the next few days, more and more people came to our door. Through the surveillance video, I could see that the faces of the people outside were full of hatred. Yes, it was hatred. At this moment, I could suddenly understand the feeling of being resented for being rich, and a kind of indescribable helplessness. In an extremely oppressive environment, people only wanted to believe what they thought. However, from another perspective, I was indeed selfish. I had a deep understanding of my own abilities. I couldn't save the world. The only thing I could do was to take good care of my beloved parents. And I could also understand the hatred of the group of people outside. The zombies in the water were still there, and the resources in this building were limited. Many people who took food from the small supermarket were probably running out of supplies. So they were in a hurry. They were angry, and our family had become the only resource point they could plunder to survive. The water level downstairs had dropped to the 2nd floor. At this moment, the water surface was full of V.Me Mamada human heads. They were all the heads of zombies. They roared all the time, but because they didn't have a foothold, and the sound on the water surface never stopped, they couldn't find their direction. They couldn't hear the movement on the high floors either. In the next 3 days, my parents and I stayed at home quietly, ignoring the constant curses and smash and grab sounds outside. Even though they had been trying to break in for so long, the door was still sturdy. During this period, we didn't eat instant food products anymore. We ate whatever we wanted and didn't worry about being discovered. I took this opportunity to keep practicing with the drone. Dad moved heavy objects such as movable cabinets to the door. Mom continued to make weapon additives in the bedroom. The only thing that made us feel a little better was that the previous high temperature, that was close to 50 degrees Celsius, had finally dropped to 39 degrees Celsius. Otherwise, if it continued to be so hot, our reserved electricity would not be enough. The consumption was more than the supply. The group of people outside became more and more crazy due to the increasing shortage of food and water. The frequency of smashing the door also increased, as if they didn't worry at all about attracting the zombies. I knew that I couldn't wait any longer. Before implementing my idea, I turned on the microphone of the surveillance camera and said to the group of people outside, I know you're short of water and food, but even if our family shares our food, it won't last long for everyone. If you keep smashing like this, it will only make the situation worse. The actions of the zombies in the water are becoming more and more sensitive. If this continues, everyone will be finished. When the tattooed man heard my voice, he was extremely irritable. You bitch. Don't talk nonsense from above. Even if the zombies don't come, we're going to starve to death anyway. Who cares about that? You have so many things and you don't share them. Even if I die, I have to drag you to hell with me. These days, I had long become numb to these foul-mouthed words. I wasn't affected by what the tattooed man said. We can provide food for you, but there's one requirement. You must retreat to the 18th floor. Otherwise, we'll all perish together. As soon as I finished speaking, the people outside were shocked. Obviously, they didn't expect us to say that. The tattooed man naturally wasn't satisfied. Who the hell knows what crappy things you'll use to fob us off? If you don't want to attract the zombies, let me in. Then keep smashing, and see how long it takes you to break through. I wasn't going to indulge him. After extreme bargaining, the tattooed man finally gave in under the dissatisfaction of others. After all, being able to get food and water immediately was the most important thing. Don't try to hide. I will use the drone to patrol the 15th floor and above. Once someone violates the agreement, we won't fulfill our promise. The tattooed man on the surveillance screen looked even more unpleasant. Obviously, my words shattered the thoughts in his mind. After everyone retreated to the 15th floor, I began to operate the drone to monitor the entire building. In fact, we had this idea a long time ago. The food at home was enough for us to eat comfortably for about 2 years. Although we are not great philanthropists, we really can't bear to watch a group of people starve to death in front of us. The night before, I had discussed with my father and decided to distribute several boxes of compressed biscuits and some other filling foods. My mother used 2 large bags of flour to make steamed buns for a whole day. We gave out 20 large buckets of drinking water and an additional 5 boxes of small bottles of mineral water. If they eat these sparingly, it should be enough for the people outside to last for about a month. The water downstairs should recede completely within a week. By then they will have more options for a way out. This is the only thing we can do within our ability. We can't do any more. No one knows how long the end of the world will last, and we have to take this into consideration. The door that had been closed for more than a month was opened. I used the drone to monitor the situation, and my mother filled a watering can for watering the vegetables with self-made pepper spray mixed with poison as a precaution. My father became the laborer, constantly carrying things. It took a full 2 hours to finish everything. Before closing the door, we took a look at the condition of the door. Fortunately, there was an additional pure iron door outside the explosion-proof door. All in all, the damage to the door was much better than we had expected before. After closing the door, I didn't retrieve the drone until a few minutes later. 10 minutes later, the group of people downstairs came up. From the surveillance, we could see that everyone was very happy and rushed forward. The tattooed man's gang had high combat power and was the first group to take the supplies. After taking the supplies, they even gave us the middle finger towards the surveillance camera upstairs. This guy, an ungrateful wretch. Even though we knew what kind of person the tattooed man was, we still felt very annoyed when we saw his behavior. The last ones to take the supplies were the middle-aged people with average mobility. There were no elderly people or children left in this building. They were all gone. The next month was relatively quiet. Apart from the tattooed man's gang occasionally coming to chop at the door, there was nothing much else. There were also people whose food was almost gone, who came up and begged us to give them some more. Regarding this, my parents and I pretended not to hear. The water outside had receded a long time ago. The number of zombies had increased by nearly 10 times compared to before. Without using binoculars, when looking downstairs, we could see a dense group of zombies. Most of the survivors in the other buildings in the community were almost all dead. After all, being trapped in an isolated building, there was simply no place to find supplies. Most people lost their lives when they went out to look for supplies. With such a dense group of zombies downstairs, it was too difficult to go out. When the end of the world just broke out, the method of a young man throwing a speaker no longer had any effect under the siege of so many zombies. Thanks to these zombies, although the tattooed man's gang had always wanted to break down our door, they didn't dare to make too much noise. 9. It was the 4th month after the outbreak of the end of the world. The food and water we contributed had already been used up by the people downstairs. In fact, a month ago, our family gave them supplies again, including a lot of water and food. It was enough for 2.5 months worth of food. These food and water had also reached the limit of what we could give. If they had been frugal, they could have lasted for 1 more month, without a problem. Unfortunately, human nature is like this. It's never satisfied. With so many supplies, they actually squandered them all in just 1 month. When I saw the half-eaten steamed buns that were thrown away in the corridor with the drone, my parents and I were completely disheartened. Even in such a time of severe shortage of supplies, they still didn't cherish the food, relying on others' charity. This group of people was completely hopeless. The people downstairs originally thought that we would send out supplies again. They waited on the 20th floor on the first day. It was not until the next day when they saw that there was nothing at the door that they began to feel puzzled. On the 3rd day, the 4th day, they didn't start to panic until later. A group of people knelt in front of our door, begging us to send out some food. The 2 times of relief made the group of people outside think that we had an endless supply of food. But how could that be possible? The house was only so big. We had to consider the area and the load-bearing capacity of the house. How much food could there be? The food left in the house now, if our family ate frugally, would only be enough for about a year. We had given so much, and everyone could have eaten together for a longer time. Yet they just had to waste it. It was precisely because it wasn't their own things that they didn't cherish them. They just thought that others' contributions were supposed to be given. They just thought that as long as they begged, others had to give charity. My parents and I were completely disheartened by the people outside. Human greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Moreover, we really didn't have the extra resources to help them now. As time passed, I monitored with the drone and saw that the group of people downstairs were fighting over the food that they had thrown away before and didn't like to eat. They were afraid of the zombies downstairs, so no one dared to come to our door to cause trouble. Otherwise, before they could harm us, they would be killed by the zombies downstairs first. It was the 5th month after the outbreak of the end of the world. The tattooed man was no longer human. My parents and I witnessed with our own eyes that he drained the blood from a person who was about to die. He used human blood as water and human flesh as food, just separated by one floor. It was the difference between heaven and hell. I saw that the people in the tattooed man's gang forced beautiful young girls for sexual desires. The others didn't dare to stop them, or make a sound for fear of their lives, and just pretended not to see. I saw that many women offered their bodies to the tattooed man voluntarily in order to survive. Downstairs was the hell ruled by the tattooed man, and my parents and I were powerless to do anything about these things. We couldn't stop those evil deeds from happening. It should be said that we didn't dare to. When the evil deeds first emerged, we had tried to stop them, but the tattooed man seemed to have found a perverse pleasure in it, and would even do those disgusting things in front of our door. I knew that they were deliberately trying to disgust us. The tattooed man had also threatened that as long as we could give him food, he would let those women go. I chose to believe him once, but as a result, he became even more excessive. If I hadn't been reborn, perhaps I who survived in my previous life would have been one of those people downstairs. Half a year after the outbreak of the end of the world, the people downstairs started to have internal conflicts. Currently, the food and water resources depended on the living people, and those living people were walking reserves of food. No one wanted to become someone else's ration, and they were even more afraid of becoming the ration of the zombies downstairs. My parents and I would exercise when we had nothing to do on weekdays. There was nothing else we could do. The only thing we could do was to exercise our bodies well, and increase our chances of survival. After the outbreak of the zombie virus, what was more terrifying than the zombies was human nature. 8 months after the outbreak of the apocalypse, in the morning, I heard a vibration overhead. It was the sound of a helicopter. At this time, apart from the government, there was no one else who would use a helicopter. My parents and I had our eyes light up, and directly went to the attic. We looked outside through the glass of the attic. A helicopter was hovering about 2 meters in front of the attic. Our initial excitement was instantly replaced by fear when we saw the sparks emerging from the back of the helicopter. Although it was bulletproof glass, if the helicopter crashed into it, it really couldn't be stopped. My parents obviously thought of this too, and their faces turned anxious. We had planted corn in the vegetable garden, and it had grown quite tall. In order to make the Air Force pilot in the helicopter notice us, my father directly broke off a corn stalk, and the three of us waved towards the helicopter in the sky together. As the saying goes, heaven helps those who work hard. The helicopter pilot saw us, and he was very surprised. Apparently, he didn't expect there to be living people here. I pointed downstairs. The glass of the attic was hermetically sealed and couldn't be opened. If we wanted to have a conversation, we could only go to the window in the living room. The helicopter pilot quickly understood and lowered the altitude, getting close to the window. The vibration of the helicopter was so intense that the people downstairs and the zombies at the bottom of the building became excited. "Is this your home?" the Air Force pilot said. Yes. Perhaps due to the urgency of the situation, the Air Force pilot made a gesture to the people behind him. The next second, the cabin door opened, and a person wearing an Air Force combat uniform first saluted us, and then tied an old man in a protective suit, who had his eyes closed, to himself. With the assistance of 2 other people, he threw a thick rope towards our window. Although we didn't know the reason, just by looking at this unfaded uniform, my parents and I didn't think twice, and were eager to lend a hand. Due to the loud noise, the zombies downstairs became excited, and all headed towards our building. The people downstairs obviously noticed this and started to panic. "Hey, what are you doing? You've attracted all the zombies here. Damn it. Hurry up and fly away. The zombies are coming." We didn't know exactly what was said downstairs, but soon we saw the group of people downstairs throwing things at the helicopter, such as stones and alarm clocks. It seemed they wanted to drive the helicopter away by hitting it. Since the helicopter was at a certain distance from the window, the young Air Force soldiers' movements were not very fast. The floor was high and shaking, the rope was thin, and the Air Force soldier had another person on his body. With the slightest carelessness, there could be a life-threatening danger. I was so anxious that I could only hold the rope in my hand tightly. My father tied the end of the rope to the iron rod of the iron rack at home, and the 3 of us pulled it together. The noise of the zombies downstairs was getting louder, and the commotion of the group of people downstairs was also increasing. The helicopter was being hit and shaking more and more. 10 minutes later, we finally helped the young Air Force soldier and the old man into our home. Just as we were about to continue picking up more people, we didn't know where the people downstairs had hit, and the sparks at the tail of the helicopter were getting bigger and bigger. "We don't have time left. You, Professor Liu, is entrusted to you." After the pilot said this, without giving us a chance to reply, he suddenly flew the helicopter downwards. Seeing this, I instantly understood that they wanted to attract the zombies gathered downstairs away. "This won't work. The helicopter is on fire." My mother said incoherently. With the help of the helicopter, the zombies gathered downstairs were attracted away by the noise of the helicopter. Then, at a position several hundred meters outside the community, the helicopter lost control and exploded in mid-air. The city fell into a silent stillness again. The young Air Force soldier named Yu had his eyes turn red, and his body was tense all over. I opened my mouth, wanting to offer comfort, but I didn't know what to say. At this moment, no matter what was said, it would be useless. 10 minutes later, my father raised his hand and patted Yu's shoulder. "Cheer up. Everything will pass." Yeah. At this moment, all the people in the house focused their eyes on the old man in the protective suit. We were all curious about who this old man was. For him, the people's soldiers had sacrificed themselves voluntarily. You saw our doubts. He is Professor Lu Nanshan, a top expert in the fields of virology, medicine and biology in the world. He has developed a vaccine against the virus. He suddenly fainted on the way back. Worried about Professor Lu's safety, we took a detour through City C, and then transferred the plane, so that we could return to Beijing as soon as possible. But on the way, the tail of the helicopter was hit by people on the ground. We all knew what happened next. We were all surprised by the identity of Lu Nanshan, and what we didn't expect even more was that the national power indeed still existed. Not only did it exist, but it had developed a vaccine just half a year after the outbreak of the zombie virus. It seemed that the time to return to normal life was just around the corner. You frowned. He first looked at the situation downstairs, and then at Professor Lu, who was still unconscious. It seemed that he was thinking about something. Well, my mother is a third-level nurse. She can take a look at Professor Lu. When you heard my words, his eyes instantly lit up. Apparently, he didn't expect there to be a professional in this house. My mother had already squatted beside Professor Lu, and started to examine him. The examination is done. For now, it seems that it is a temporary fainting caused by excessive fatigue. Let's first infuse a bottle of glucose, and we'll see the situation when Professor Lu wakes up later. You looked at my mother in shock, and then at me. You have such a complete set of things in your house. It was not surprising to have food and water, nor was it surprising to have medicine, but having even an infusion needle was really incredible. My parents and I smiled and didn't say anything. The next morning, Professor Lu woke up. After having breakfast, we told each other about our respective situations. Professor Lu should be someone who had seen great things. He seemed very calm about waking up in our house. In the following days, you would report the daily situation to his superiors using a satellite phone. The rest of the time, he would do various physical jobs such as cleaning the house, watering the vegetable garden, and washing the dishes. My parents and I tried to stop him, saying that we could do it. You said that if he just ate and drank the food provided by the masses without doing something within his power, he would feel guilty. After experiencing the group of people downstairs, and hearing what you said and seeing the brave warriors who had sacrificed their young lives for countless people that day, my parents and I were deeply moved by these pure hearts. We also regained our hope for the beauty of human nature. Professor Lu, like many scientists, spent all day in a small room, and we didn't know what he was researching. My parents and I rarely disturbed him, except during meals. We originally thought that everything was gradually calming down, but unexpectedly, the group of people downstairs started to cause trouble again. Perhaps knowing that there was an Air Force soldier in our house, the people downstairs came to our doorstep more and more frequently. They resorted to moral kidnapping from time to time. For example, the people serve me, and I serve the people. Have you forgotten these slogans as a soldier? Another example was, "Soldier, please save us. We're going to starve to death," and so on. We originally thought that you would be soft-hearted, but unexpectedly, he was even calmer than us. Yu's full name was Yu. It turned out that due to his special occupation, the evil of human nature they had encountered after the outbreak of the apocalypse was even more terrifying than we had imagined. Even Professor Lu was very calm. It was obvious that he had encountered such things more than once or twice. After my parents and I showed them the criminal videos of the group of people downstairs, such as cannibalism, forcing women, and killing people, Professor Lu and he were even more disgusted with that group of people. Don't worry. With these videos, they will all receive the punishment they deserve when social order is restored. When we heard them say this, my parents and I finally felt completely at ease. 2 months later, Professor Lu's vaccine passed the experimental stage. During these 2 months, helicopters came to deliver supplies from time to time, mainly research tools for Professor Lu. Our home became a base for important people. In short, you can't imagine the joy of relying on powerful support. As for why Professor Lu was so quick in his work, it was because he had actually finished the research before. So it went very fast once it entered the practical stage. In addition, the military also cleared the zombies in circles around our community as the center. 5 months later, City C was completely liberated. Since Professor Lu was used to living in our house, and didn't want to change the place, many important people came to our community. This building became a key protected building. The people like the tattooed man had been taken away as soon as the military entered, together with all the criminal evidence. 1.5 years later, the whole country was liberated. The zombies were completely cleared. Our country became the first country in the world to quickly eliminate the zombie virus, taking only 2.5 years. Everything was waiting to be revived. There was still hope. The future was still ahead. The great descendants of Yan and Huang cannot be crushed. The Chinese civilization, which has existed on the earth for 5,000 years, will live on forever.